All right,
Right.
we're back to live again, and recording. And we've got about 15 minutes left before we'll finish this.
Okay, that's good.
The rest, if we don't get there, we'll just cut.
We just
I can click fast. I can have the PowerPoint done in about 2 minutes. So you guys just be quiet, just nod your head, we're good. So, so going into roads, I get the thing to click here now. Oh, no.
You jinxed yourself when you said 2 minutes. Is it battery operated and you've worn it out?
It just lit up, I think we're good. It would tell me I was down to 7% battery, and I thought I was plugged in, so, okay. Okay, for roads.
Oh, I lied. Provo City has 200 plus miles more than you do, of road miles.
Doesn't
No,
surprise me. Doesn't surprise me, so.
Yeah, they're like 7.
Yeah, so on our B roads, we have about 540 miles. There are about 350 or so of that. Did I get out of? Hold on here. Yeah, I got out of sequence, I think. No, that's right. It's just not looking the way I thought it would be. I don't know. Anyway, we'll figure it out here. I don't know what I've got going on.
Keep feeling you better, Richard. It looks great to me.
Okay, good. So we've got about 540 miles of road. 350 or so of that is paved. Another 135 or so is gravel, and then the remainder is dirt. That's on our B road system. And we also have our D roads, which are, we don't have the maintenance requirement we do for the B roads, but we still have maintenance responsibilities that we do. You know, it may be fixing a culvert, it may be grading occasionally, things like that. So that's in addition to the 540 miles that are up there.
The one that washed out at Powell Creek Canyon was a D road, for example.
The-
This early in the spring from the flood.
The one that was actually a B road.
Okay.
Yep, that was a B road. That was actually a paved road
Oh, okay.
that we had the problems with. Well, two
Portion-
different
right.
ones.
Right.
One was the main Hobble Creek Canyon Road, that's a B road. The other was Bartholomew Canyon, which is
Yes.
a D road.
That was the one I
Yes.
was referring to.
Yes, so two different ones. Same event, two different roads.
Yeah.
So we've talked just a little bit about pavement maintenance as we've gone through the parks. I've got two different slides here that they don't pay a whole lot of attention to the numbers that are on them because they're slightly different. One comes from the Asphalt Institute, one comes from the AASHTO, the American Association of State and Highway Transportation Officials. The concept is the same, even though their dollar amounts kind of look a little bit different. As you look at that, where you start off with a new road, it's in excellent condition at year 0, and over time that falls off to a poor condition or a
If-
failed condition.
If nothing's done.
That's where the little lines come in there over the top. So the heavier red line that drops off steep, that's if you just put it down and forget it, okay? And you can see that out there at about, 10-year life, you've basically gone through 75% of the pavement life, and you've lost about 40% of your pavement structure, your condition on the road. And then over that next few years, you drop off considerably quicker. And you can see those little bumps up on the top. If you do preventative maintenance, seal coats, chip seals, crack sealing, that sort of thing, to keep that pavement surface in good condition, you spend a little bit of money and you do it on a regular basis, and you can extend the life of that road out a long ways. That's what we like to try to get to. Unfortunately, in the past, we haven't had the money to be able to do that as much as we'd like, because we've had to be much more reactionary than being proactive. That's one of those things, and I'll use the Murdoch Canal Trail, for instance. When you look at us going out there and doing a seal coat on seemingly nice, brand new asphalt, people look at us and say, well, you're crazy. Well, this is actually what we're doing. We're trying to preserve that so that we don't have to get back in and do the expensive work
Right,
anytime
but
for.
the thing that is not shown on this is it also depends what treatment you do to it to preserve it
Oh,
at that higher
absolutely,
quality.
absolutely.
Because the chip seal's the worst.
Well,
As far as road deterioration, chip seals, they buy you 2 years, but they don't give you,
Not,
The-
not
the-
if you put it on a new road, a chip seal will actually work very good for extending that time out there. If you're putting it on a bad road, which unfortunately is what
Right.
we wind up doing, we're putting a Band-Aid on to try to buy a few years.
Right.
So it depends on where you are on that first curve when you do that, what kind of life expectancy you get out of it. That makes sense?
So every road you have out there, you have one of these curves on it, there's one of these graphs on it?
What we have is part of that software system that we've talked about, that we've been working with IT on over the last couple of years, where we're trying to get to, again, with that AssetWorks software that we would propose to go to. It would provide us a PCI on every piece of pavement, whether it's a
Okay,
road,
so
a trail.
now
for
we-
parking lot.
$345,000, I'm leaning toward $10,000 or
Okay,
even
but-
20,000 to Nick to get us caught up on this.
But that's only one portion of the whole AssetWorks
I
thing,
know,
so-
but I'm talking about this, we're on roads.
Right. But that's not the $345,000. That's the whole package. Roads is a portion of that. So just to clarify that. But yes, the idea is to have a pavement condition index on every segment of road out there. And then from that, then you make that determination on, okay, here's where we are currently. If I'm already down here at the poor or very poor condition, to go in and put a seal coat on it is not the right method to do it. We're to the point we need to go in and do an overlay or some other reconstruction that way.
And actually, what this graph doesn't reflect is what, if I remember right, the exact numbers, they tell you at 60 to 45%, you better be doing some major maintenance to it to extend it. Otherwise, you will be in
You'll
failure very quickly.
Yep, and that's where you see that drop off so quick on the back end of that curve, that, once you get to a certain point, you don't, when you hit 50% of your
Road use.
condition,
Yeah,
you're not at 50% of your life.
right.
So
You're at like
80%. Yeah. So,
10 left, I mean.
so along that, I've got a second graph here. It's a little bit different. It's kind of the same concept. Looking at you do the routine maintenance when you're in the good condition. You do the preventative maintenance or the light rehabilitation, maybe a thin overlay, something like that. When you're in the fair condition, which is what Commissioner Graves just was indicating, that's where you if you're to that point, you really need to get something done soon, or you're gonna drop into that poor condition. And once you get down to there, then you're into structural rehabilitation, reconstruction. You're into the high dollar treatments at that point. So the whole premise of pavement maintenance is to, when you get the new pavement down, is to preserve them early on so that they'll last a lot longer. Because if you do that, and you do that routine maintenance every 7, 8, 9 years, and keep the seal coats on them and keep that pavement in good condition, instead of having a pavement life of 15 years, you've now extended that out to 30 or 35 or 40 years for that pavement that's underneath. And, because if you just put it down and forgot it for 15 years, you'd have to come back and reconstruct the road every 15 years. If you're doing the routine maintenance on it, then you can extend that out. You're still gonna have to reconstruct the road at some point in time. But that can be out in that, 35, 40-year time frame. So that's kind of the premise of how you go about pavement maintenance. It falls in the same with our parkways. It's the same on our parking lots. So it's one of those things that we need to take more of a global look at our pavement maintenance. In the past, we've typically kind of had the mindset of, I gotta pay attention to the roads. And the parking lots and the trails, maybe not so much. But I think that the way we're trying to go to is, let's look at all of the pavement in that scenario and try to figure out the best way to do it. So, with that.
So my only,
Sure.
I don't know if it's disagreement or caution on that is, problem is with paved trails, and you're right, it still deteriorates, that's not the problem. But the problem is when you're talking about spending tax dollars for maintenance, what has a higher traffic use? And that to me is why we need to start looking really at what has more of our high density use versus other things before we even go for projects, because, because that maintenance is important.
And I don't disagree with that on what future projects we go for. The thing I look at is that somewhere in the past, either you or a previous commission has made a decision to build these facilities. I don't think it's in the county's best interest or the public's best interest if we let those deteriorate to a point that they're not usable. We've got a huge investment in them. We need to make sure that we're maintaining them properly. If you have a philosophical change that you want to say, okay, we're going to unpaved trails instead of paved trails, that's fine. But, we need to be given that direction and told how you want us to proceed with it, so.
Well, like the Highline Canal, they wanted to do gravel, and I applaud it because it was a lot more effective to start.
And from past experience, for me, I think that's a great way to start. I think that over time, you will get a lot of requests from the public saying, we really want to see this trail paved. I think, just from my own experience, that's what I think you'll see come along the way. But, that's something that
But that's when individual cities then go for their RAP taxes, and they've generally passed in this county because the residents do, but that's what they can go to.
yeah,
The county doesn't have that.
and that's something that you just have to look at and say, how do we want to approach this?
Sure.
Do we want to do something like we've done on the Murdoch that encompasses the county and several cities all in one project, and the maintenance of that, or do we want to do it city by city?
Yeah.
It's just a different philosophy on it, so.
Sure.
And
So
we're,
I've got to ask you,
Sure.
you're talking about philosophical on this. So, in your opinion, this is just your opinion on it, in the past, has the county and the direction been neglectful when it comes to looking at these graphs and maintaining in a proper way to keep us going forward in the sense that, and I'll just kind of throw this out there, in the sense that their priorities have been more on, maybe on roads or other types of transit projects, and therefore we have gone down in our roads for the county?
the thing I can see, and I'll speak specifically towards roads. Over the past several years, the monies that have been allocated for roads have been specifically the B road monies. And with that, we can't keep up. The roads fall behind if that's all the money we've got going towards roads. We can't keep up with the maintenance of that 350 miles of paved roads, the 150 miles of gravel roads that's out there. As far as monies that have gone to other projects, we haven't done a lot in, the monies that have gone towards projects have not been eligible for maintenance funding. Like some of the MAG funding, it's not, maintenance activity is not an eligible activity under those funds. So I don't know that we've been neglectful that way, but we've not been able to put other monies, like general fund money, into the roads to bring them to the level or keep them at a level they need to be, and we've fallen behind.
So when, at one point in time, we spent like $18 million on trails in the county?
The Murdoch Trail itself was about $18 million.
Oh,
that-
just itself, by itself?
That was the cost of the
I
Murdoch
wasn't
Trail.
thinking of that specifically, but I was, that's an
That,
interesting
that would have
example.
been 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
And that was funded through a variety of sources. There was about 11 million that came from the federal government, and then some other monies that came through the CMAQ money, through MAG, and
Again, who's left holding the O&M and all the replacement?
well,
That's the problem.
it's 65% the city,
We all
35%
think
the
about the
county.
shiny new while we're here to put the sticker on it and put
Yep,
my name on it.
and
but-
that's one thing that I would caution you as a commission, that before you look at any of the projects, where are we gonna be in 10 years with the maintenance funding? If we don't feel like we have the money to maintain it, don't build it.
It's part of the reason I don't want you doing that Elk Ridge, not the connector, the expansion, the one that the county's doing. I just don't see that as a need for us to expand maintenance because the traffic's not there yet. I think that's a 5-10 year down the
It
road,
actually is, so,
not compared to some of the other roads.
depends on what road you're comparing
Okay,
to, so.
in county standards, yes. I'm talking for the whole county as a commissioner who sits and looked at all of MAG. It's not even close. It
Oh,
is from a
and-
county standard.
Oh, and if you do that, the county will never get any money from MAG for roads because we don't even hold a candle.
Yeah, but that's because, again, if you're talking about building roads based on capacity, use, volume, and safety, we
But-
probably shouldn't get it
but-
compared to others.
But if you look at it that way, just because a road is lower volume than, say, University Avenue,
Yeah,
doesn't mean that the road doesn't warrant a project to keep it so that it's in a safe operating condition.
I
works.
don't disagree with that.
So I think it's one of those, you have to kind of weigh the volume versus what the current road is versus, you know, the safety aspects of it.
Sure, but when you have two roads that have the same length, one project costs 8 million and one costs $6 million, and one is handling 10,000 people and one's handling 1,000, or let's even say 3,000 drives a day. Well, one's got a very good return on investment for the public and the other one doesn't in those comparisons. And that's the problem. And again, we're talking MAG, not from your standpoint.
Right. But that's, you know, I think that from a road standpoint, a transportation standpoint, we've got to look at what can we do as the county, number one, to provide, you know, good quality projects for the county, and how do we maintain those projects once they're built and our current infrastructure that's already built. And we've got a lot of road miles out there, and a lot of them are very low volume. You know, there's ones that I struggle with. How do we fund these roads when they have 500 cars a day on, or
A year.
oh, I might have some of those too, but you know, usually not on the paved roads. But you know, I'll give you an example. It's one that we're trying to figure out how to approach it. Cayune Pass or Emma Park Road. It's the cutoff road between Highway 6 at the top of Price Canyon and Indian Canyon. The first 3.5 miles of that road is in Utah County. It is our road. It's one that gets probably about 40% truck traffic, but it probably only gets 400 or 500 vehicles a day. The road is in bad shape. It's one that was rebuilt 15 or 20 years ago. It's kind of, I hate to say it, but it's kind of up in the end of the county that was forgotten. And it gets looked at once in a while. It's one that needs to actually have a full rebuild on it, in my opinion, for the road structure and for the amount of truck traffic that's on it. How do I go about spending the couple of $1 million we'd have to spend up there to do the road correctly for that traffic volume? But on the other hand, is it safe? And it's probably not. You know, it's one of those things that you kind of weigh it out and you say, okay, how do we make this all work? And that's one of those things that we still have a responsibility as a county to have that road in good operating condition. But how do you weigh those needs versus the roads down here in the valley where you have the higher traffic demand? I don't know the answer to that. So,
Well, the only reason why, in my opinion, that you get some of the MAG funding is because ultimately the commission gets to control the final destination of that. And we're testing that right now because a lot of the mayors and MAG, the director there, they want to challenge that so that all that does not happen at the county level.
okay.
They want to make it so the county's just a stamp through. If that's the case, I was sitting in a TAC meeting in which you were at, I don't know, a year or two ago, in which it came up and they were talking about this issue in the way of what's higher priority, and yours seemed to be a little bit lower, but their comment was, yeah, but if we don't play ball with the county, and you were there,
Oh, yeah.
if we
I
don't
think
play
it
ball
definitely
with
plays
the
in some.
county and at least give them something, then we run into risk of getting nothing or something different
Getting pushback.
and getting pushback for it. So
Which we
that's
never discussed, by the way. That's not a true statement.
No, I agree, but it's definitely a perception.
it's a perception out there, and so therefore you do get projects, even if the projects, if the overall with the TAC committee, they might look at that and think, it's not quite there, but we have to play ball with the county.
Yeah.
See where we're not consistent as a county. Take Elk Ridge, okay? Not the connector. The connector is probably the best road next to North County Boulevard that this county's done. Now, again, it doesn't have the volume that North County Boulevard does, but what it does for the traffic flow and the safety of everybody, it's as an essential part. You and I know we're in that area. Commissioner Ivy's there all the time, right? But the Elk Ridge portion after if you did an intersection improvement and funnel it back down, the problem for me on that one, for example, is there is not a difference between that road than there is in Alpine for Gary Gigi. There's not one bit of difference.
Cedar
Hills, excuse me, thank you. For Gary Gigi. He has every right to be mad at the county because we are building a better road than what we would normally do for Elk Ridge. And instead of going to Elk Ridge saying, hey, you will pay or we're going to continue to build it. And that's the part that is hard to defend because, quite honestly, we're not being consistent in that. And I've told him that. If he wants wants to come down that road, I'm okay with him. Elk Ridge should be contributing to that project, and we should be turning money back into MAG, because there's a county standard and there's a county, again, you're here pleading for money for your operating and maintenance. Expanding that road is going to cost you a lot of money, but we're not
costs more
having the
money.
same conversations. Part of that, I think, is because you and I know everybody that lives there, and we know how needed it is for that area.
And part of with the maintenance costs, you look at the current pavement condition on that road specifically. The maintenance costs that I have pre-construction versus post-construction, even though there's more pavement surface there, I have more expense now because of the condition of the pavement. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Because it's already down in that low part of the curve.
Sure.
And so it's costing us a lot more per mile to maintain that road as it is now. Even then, if I expand the road and make it wider, my costs go down because now I have good pavement there and I can keep it maintained in a good manner.
Sure.
So,
But I'm just saying, there is that other side that they would be correct in,
yep.
so.
But you're not building curb and gutter.
No, we're not.
No.
We're not.
You're
It's
not
just
doing light
driving
street-
service.
Yeah, yeah.
It's adding a center turn lane, it's adding some shoulders.
That's right. We're just expanding and
Still
building a
county
little
standards.
bigger road than what we normally would do.
It's a county arterial, is what it
Right.
is, so. Yep. Okay, running on through here, just kind of give you a little bit of where we are on our road monies. Our B road funds that comes from the state through the gas tax, we get approximately $2.7 million a year. That's actually held fairly steady over the last number of years.
After they refix the equation.
No, looking back, even back to like 2006.
No, I meant a couple of years ago when they
Oh, yeah.
screwed up on the
Oh, yeah,
equation.
yeah, they got us back to where we were supposed to be. But going back even, 10 or 12 years, we've held near this same level for quite a few years. When you look back that far, fuel costs have gone up about 160%, asphalt costs similar. The equipment's gone up. All of our expenses have gone up, but our B road monies have not. So what we've proposed in years past and what we're proposing again this year is to have about a $2.5 million portion of our road money come from the general fund. That would cover our manpower and equipment. What that would do is that would allow us to put the $2.7 million of B road money on the road. That's our asphalt, our gravel, our striping, our signs, that sort of thing. If we don't have something that comes out of the general fund to go towards the B road money or towards the roads, then we don't have a whole lot of money available to maintain the road.
Unless we quit buying equipment, we start contracting out some of our road services.
And what kind of
I'm
road
just-
services would you contract out? Because
Road rebuilding. I mean, we could go to contract on, so the one up wherever.
Cayenne?
Yes.
That would be one we would contract out anyway. That's not one we would do in-house. It's beyond the scope of what we can do in-house.
Okay.
We have a paving machine, we can do smaller areas, we can do the maintenance, but when it comes to a rebuild, we have 10 guys. We're not set up to do that kind of work.
Right, and that's kind of my point is, if we take those 10 guys and we reallocate them inside Public Works and we do other stuff, whether it's maintenance or parks or whatever, and maybe we contract fully some of these roads once we, and find standards. The difference is what I'm saying is, it's a lot easier. $2.5 million from the general fund in a year where, we can get into the whole budget. Problem is $2.5 million. If we're gonna give money, that hasn't fixed one road.
Well, and we had this same conversation last year.
I know,
and I honestly had two of the three of you tell me that, hey, we'll be on board for this for next year.
I know. And then I've seen a couple different models that have got me thinking.
And honestly, the cost that we spend for road maintenance, yeah, it's a big cost. I don't deny that. You will not be able to find contractors that will be able to do that for you for the cost that we do it. It's that there's not contractors out there that typically
Okay,
do
hold on,
road
though.
maintenance.
Let me challenge that a little bit so you can answer it. If we take $2.7 million worth of road work, okay, that's $2.7 million of construction on the road, okay?
I'm not talking construction, I'm talking maintenance. It's different.
Okay, so you're talking like chip seal maintenance.
Chip seal, lane leveling, shouldering, signs, snow removal, patching.
Right, but again, all I'm saying is if we didn't buy all that equipment, okay, and we didn't spend $2.5 million, however much annually, and we gave you an extra $2 million for maintenance to contract that out,
I'd be farther behind than I am now.
that's not even possible. If we're doing more roads, that I'd like to see how.
Honestly, when we've crunched the numbers on this a few years ago, and this has been about 3 years ago, so the numbers may be a little bit different. But when we looked at what the cost would be to maintain the roads to the level that we should be maintaining them, you know, countywide, we need on average about $9.3 million a year
Okay.
to do it and hold it at a level that we should be holding those roads at.
Okay?
We're working on under 3. So we're getting a third of what we need. Even with the additional 2.5, we're up to about the 2/3 mark, you know, half to 2/3, somewhere in there of where we need to be to maintain the roads the way we should be.
So what happened to their 10 million? Because when we were looking at Prop 1, there was a graph that came in that I think you supplied the numbers for.
That's the 9.3.
And it, you know, it was more like 16 to 18 million dollars.
The numbers that I gave him for that was 9.3.
So, okay,
that-
I saw the bar graph. It was.
okay, so
a lot
hold on.
higher.
Let me ask a question on
I
this
can
9.3.
provide you the same numbers I gave them when they're looking at the proposition. That's
But
the
when you say
numbers I'm talking about.
9.3, is that 9.3 in just the work on the road? That's what I'm talking about, not the man hours. I'm talking about
That's the cost it would be, including the 2.5 that's
for equipment.
well, for our manpower and equipment.
Okay,
Which if you're paying a contractor, you're still paying for manpower and equipment.
it's not true.
Sure it is.
No,
They're not
not
doing
at the
it for
exact
free.
same cost.
They are not doing it for, yeah, I know, it's a lot more.
No, it's not,
Yes, it is.
because they are not paying 18.5% for URS defined benefits. I've got 18.5% to play with.
You've got 15% they're paying for profit.
Okay, then I've saved 3.5% and I can get more road work done.
No, because they're still paying union dues, they're paying for insurance, they're still paying for all these costs. It costs you more money on the
There's
private
no way.
side. Well, then we'll have to agree to disagree on
Because-
that, so.
Again, they are gonna make profit, but I just don't understand how if we say we need $9 million for maintenance, I agree with the number. I'm not telling you that we don't need more money in maintenance. We do. We need to pay more attention to our roads. What I'm just saying is, it's awfully hard for me to keep buying dump trucks and stuff that, the problem is, if I give you this, you're not out doing roads year round. Because you got so much other stuff you're also doing.
We do roads 12 months out of the year. We fit in some park projects or a building project with our road guys where we can fit in the gaps.
Right.
But we have guys going year-round, whether it's snow removal, whether it's grading, shouldering, patching, we are going 12 months of the year.
Okay.
Our guys don't have any downtime.
So why don't we build our road crew up to where we can handle all the roads that we ever need to do
Like for the reconstructions,
for everything?
well, and I'll use the Cayenne Pass example again. If we go into that type of a project, you're looking probably a 6-week project up there, a 2-month project that I'd have to dedicate everybody we have, and we'd have to have several more operators up there to be able to do the work. You're excavating the road out, you're hauling material in and out. I don't know where we'd have to haul from if we're hauling from the valley. You know, you've got a 2.5-hour round on a truck that, you know, so that guy hauls 4 loads a day.
There's a
And-
sweet spot somewhere in there. Because if we only have the capacity to go so far on the road building, I'm talking about if we're gonna build and do the whole thing.
And
We have a sweet spot, because we can only go so far. Right now, we're at a certain range, right?
Right,
We can only handle a certain amount.
And typically for us, we can handle small construction projects.
Why don't we build it so that we can handle the large stuff?
If we're so much better at building roads, why don't we? Because
No,
not one
that's-
city does it that way.
That's not what I'm saying. We are better at maintaining roads. We're not better at building roads. That's where you've got the W.W. Clydes, the Geneva Rocks, those people. That's what they specialize in. And that's where they do a good job. We don't claim to be road builders, and we don't have the staff to do that.
Okay.
And it's not cost effective, because
So-
those you are tied specifically to weather, because you get snowed out.
Right.
You know, you can't do those 12 months out of the year.
So, okay, so then I go back to here. Here's the problem. We know some of our roads are a failure.
Right.
We're all in agreement. But right now, we're talking about maintenance. We haven't, there's nothing in here that I've seen so far that gets these back up to a standard.
There's not.
So what, again, that's the problem. This is my fundamental problem with government. You want me to give you money for a bad road to fix a bad road that you yourself know is a Band-Aid for a bad Band-Aid.
You know, I can certainly reflect those numbers to have you get me back to where it needs to be, but you don't have that
But to me,
anywhere even
that, well,
close in
but
your
to me,
budget
those
do
are the
it.
conversations we need to have. We need to have you come up and say, you know what? And it may require
I've
literally
been-
the county
I've been
bonding
saying it
for,
9 years.
well, I'm just saying, we may need you to literally come up. It may mean the county may have to bond for $40 million worth of construction projects to get our roads up to a standard level.
And that would be great. And actually, going back to your Provo example, that's what they did.
Right, I know they did, but that's what I'm saying. And then they also have, I mean, they spend about $9-10 million a year maintaining all those roads to a higher standard than we do.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. The problem is
And if you look at Provo and probably any of the other cities in the valley, I know for Spanish Fork for a fact, because I was there for a lot of years, there is added money besides the B road money, B and C road money for the cities that
They
goes
get out of their
in.
general fund.
They get out of their general fund
right.
to maintain the roads.
right. I know that, but again, my problem isn't giving you money to maintain. My problem is giving you money to maintain something that's broken. That's like saying, hey, there's a big crack in the wall, just slap some paint on it.
Well, if I get enough paint, then it helps.
Yeah, well, but therein like, see, and that's the problem is it's my same thing, and we're going to get to it on the historic courthouse. It's not that you're not making and doing good work. I don't want anybody in any of your department to think I don't appreciate and think you're doing good work. The problem is you're doing useless work, because we should be actually doing the foundation and the structure and the rebuilding of these roads rather than.
Could not agree more.
So,
And honestly,
but that's not what's presented to me.
That comes right back to the commission, though. You give us the money to go do it, and we'll go do it.
But we don't have a proposal in front of us, so why don't you get that to us so we can have both those discussions quickly?
Hey, that'd be great, but it'll
Okay.
scare you to death.
But we need to have it. It may be scary, but again, we need to deal in reality, because to give you $2.5 million for equipment to fix something is a waste of money
It's not giving us $2.5 million for equipment. That's
and manpower.
well, that's what that general fund money would pay for.
Right.
It's currently being paid out of that 2.7.
Oh, I know
It's the B
that.
road money.
To fix.
Essentially, it gives us money that we can actually put on the road. It's so we can buy the asphalt and the chips and the gravel and et cetera, for the road.
I'll tell you where I am at, okay? I literally would give Nick Jones $10,000, whatever that cost is, and I'd have them come in today, and it takes them 6 weeks to evaluate all our roads. And if they come back and tell me it needs $80 million to get our roads up to a safety standard level that we can then maintain, and then we can have that discussion as far as how we're gonna maintain it, that's the discussion I think we should be having, because otherwise, I think we're just wasting money, because I don't want you to keep chip sealing a chip seal of a chip seal of a chip seal, and you know what I mean? I want you to be able to say to us, this road's good. This, we had an accident.
That's what we've been wanting to try to get to for years.
Right, and we've had this conversation too. I don't know where we're at. I don't know where the roads are at.
That's my problem. I don't know either.
I don't know if
And we-
this road down here is, substandard, or if this one's up here, or we got alligator cracks so bad in this other one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that mileage is, to go out there and say, this is a bad road,
And
and this
we
is why it's a
can give
bad
you
road.
our best estimate right now.
Yeah.
But to have the hard data on it, I don't have it.
Hey,
Right.
That's what I've
Do
been.
me a favor. If you don't have Nick's number, I'll get it to
I've
you.
got Nick's number.
But reach out and find out what he can
Yep,
do
I will
for
call
us in
him.
this regard, and let's have that conversation sooner rather than later, so we go into
will call
next
him.
year and we have a plan that you're on board with. And even if, again, we might not be able to fix $60 million of road in 1 year, that's a lot, obviously. But at least then we can come up with a plan and say, okay, these ones are closer to maintenance, or failure, so here's your money, go maintain those, and we have a plan. And we might have to let one go to failure for 1 or 2 years, because in 2 years, we're gonna take care
so
of it.
along that line, that's where it takes a mind shift, and it did for me.
Sure.
The public especially, they say, well, we'll fix the worst road first. The most cost-effective way is to fix your good road first.
That's right.
Because then you can hold it and maintain it and you're
Well,
money
you
ahead
get
in
more
the
bang
long
on your
run.
buck.
We can only
$100.
do that if we know where
That's
we're
right.
at.
And if we can actually say, okay,
Right.
here's where we are and here's the level we need to be
Yeah.
at.
Right.
Exactly.
If we don't have that, it's hard to do it.
And the
Right.
plan's in place.
But see, then it's a lot easier to say, okay, if you give us $2.5 million for manpower and equipment, here's what we can save, and it buys us 7 years. Well, we know what buying 7 years on the road saves us, right?
Right.
Then you're not spending $2.5 million. We can look at it and say, we're spending $2.5 million, but we are saving millions.
And honestly, with that $2.5 million request, that's not a one-time request. What we're
Right.
looking at is that's something that needs to be ongoing.
But again, for substandard roads, that's my issue.
But-
Not
And-
because of
and
your
the-
fault.
And the only difference is that we can try to get closer to having standard, not substandard roads, but I'll say standard roads, having them up to a standard than we can without it.
Right.
We're gonna get further and further behind without it. We're gonna get closer with it. Are we gonna get
Again, you're
there?
right.
So,
Previous commissioners, and you're right, and this precedes even you being at Public Works, they've kicked this can down the road, and the can is literally rusting on the road now.
Yep.
So, but again, we need that inventory, we need to go through and figure out what we have so we can develop a game plan. We need to seriously sit down and have that conversation, so.
And we've had
That's
this,
why I was hoping that we'd have that GIS, that would work because
and that's what, it would work, and that's what we've been, that was
I was excited for that.
That was told to us that would be done in 4 to 6 months, 2 years ago.
Because like I said, I'm seeing swings back and forth, and it
I know.
always seems like the swings back and forth come on whatever political bent we want to go on. Roads will always be political because you can point to them and say, we're failing, you're gonna have to raise your taxes, don't you want to drive down a road that looks nice? And you can let them go to, if you wanted to, you could let them go to a point to where you say, now we gotta raise taxes again. And then they get siphoned off, and it goes to other thing else. And then all of a sudden you come back, oh, the roads are failing again.
Well, quite honestly, there's a mayor that runs a construction company that he owns, that he's made a comment in MAG before that he says that seems like at times UDOT will pull projects and reallocate funds because they know the demand will be there, i.e. I-15 and Lehigh. And yeah, they put it down the road, so the legislature has to come in and fund, and now they get everything they want. That's the problem. We don't want to be there. We want to have that conversation, and let's sit down and have that honest conversation with everybody. But, to me, I guess what I'm saying, and I'm only one person, I'm committing to trying to get that analyzation done now
We would love it.
to go before Christmas. We can still talk about the other asset management, that needs to be an aspect of it too, but we got to have a starting point so we can have that discussion for me.
I would agree with that, so. Okay, just a couple items on, again, more back to the
Thought we
stormwater.
agreed to sand. Just kidding.
Currently, we have salt.
Actually, isn't it actually a mix? There is some sand component to it.
It's,
Or have you
it-
gone all
it-
salt?
It is, but it's the Redmond salt, so it has it's a dirty salt, if you will.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's mined, it's a material that's mined down to Redmond. That's typically what we use. One of the things that's coming about with the stormwater regulations, and it's goofy in my opinion, we can't load and unload the salt trucks outside. Cause
What?
we might get salt on the ground. It's
Do we
like,
dump on the ground anyway?
we're gonna load it up, go and spread it all over everywhere. But you gotta have a covered area to load and unload. And it's like, okay, that really doesn't make any sense, but,
How big a tarp do you need?
well, what we're looking at is, and this kinda goes into the broader discussion, are we staying put where we're at, are we going to a different location? How do we go about that? And we don't wanna get into something that we build and then, okay, we're leaving in a year, so now we're tearing it down. The current building that we have is what they call a sprung structure. It's the aluminum frame with the fabric over the top of it. That's one that you could add another component to it, have it run the other direction, bring the trucks in one end, out the other. That's a possibility. We actually looked at one up at, was it Salt Lake Airport that had the covered area. That's, for them, it's a block building that they've built, and they have an area, and then they have a little different requirement at the airport than we do. It's a whole different animal in doing snow and ice removal at an airport than it is on a road. There's a lot of requirements there. But, they have the material that they have to keep it dry before it goes out on the area. We have that need as well, but not for the same reasons. If our salt piles get wet, they crust up, and then they don't flow through the spreaders well. and we get big clumps where we wanna have it spread out in the granules. So the stormwater requirements that are coming about for salt storage, they are going to require us to do different methods than we have now and, have some different facilities there than we currently have. So that goes into that broader discussion of what are we doing with the Public Works facility? You know, we don't wanna dump money into one if we're not gonna stay there, but if we are gonna stay there, then we need to.
Remove me.
Hey, sounds good. So,
They got tons of room out there. That's what they keep
the
telling me.
other thing, salt spreader storage, where we currently hang our salt beds now, it's just a steel rack that they hang on. Part of the stormwater requirements, we've gotta have a roof over it. Doesn't have to be enclosed, but we've gotta have the roof over the top of it so the stormwater's not
Well,
running.
you see that on all the UDOT sub,
And-
you can see them all over.
Yep, and that's the reason why. So that's something that's coming about from the stormwater requirements. And then again, we've got some people that are,
Next.
and that's, you know, we've talked a little bit about weeds. They are a subset of our road division. They work in that category. We have a fair amount of areas that they go out and do weed control along the shoulders of the road. Honestly, we don't have enough time to get to everything that we need to. We do the best we can. There's places though that only get mowed every other year. And mainly like up in the canyon areas where we're up on some of the mountain roads and things like that, but those are the ones that tend to get, let go for that every other year category, so.
So I guess my question to you on that would be, are there companies out there that maybe you could look at helping you, and so you take an area and maybe we contract for a certain area?
I'm not aware of any, but we could certainly look and see if there are.
Of course, we weren't aware for destruction of a platform on top of a cliff either, so.
True. I'm not aware of anybody that does roadside mowing, but, we can look into it.
Yeah, I
See
mean, I
what
know
it
it's a
is.
whole different animal than,
That's it for roads, so you ready to jump into Fleet?
How about Summit Creek?
Summit Creek. Oh, is that our flood control one? The flood control
Yeah.
payment? Yeah.
Because we had had a discussion earlier in the year about maybe looking at some interest savings if that was able to be
Oh, yeah.
paid off or,
Yeah,
so I just wanted to.
there's no penalty in paying it off early. I think it's, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. I want to say it's around 500,000.
yes, something like that. Well,
but-
with credits and stuff, it was lower.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've paid a couple of years into it, so we're probably, you know, we might be 400 or a little better that we still owe on it. There's no penalty in paying it off early if we choose to do that. It would just be a upfront expense to do it, so.
And I'd like to have you make a recommendation on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I also think, there was something about maybe seeing the documentation because of the 400,000 that had been spent, of making sure that the county actually got the credit
Yeah.
for that.
Yes,
Seems like we talk about that every year.
yeah. We've
I
got a
don't
big
know if I've ever
spreadsheet that has
seen-
all that on it, so.
We've ever seen, there's always a question on that one.
And all that documentation, when the latest addendum was done, that was all part of that packet for
Yeah.
that one, but we can certainly provide it for you, so. For fleet, couple of items that we have there, our Provo fuel site, and again, that kind of plays into that discussion of what do we do, long-term. We have a 30-year-old fuel station. We've been told that we have the oldest still underground tanks in the state. We did just do a project just in the last month or so that was to add some cathodic, or redo the cathodic protection so that we're compliant. Depending on what we wind up doing with the site, we've got to go one of two ways with the fuel station. The tanks either need to be decommissioned and the fuel station abandoned, taken out of the ground, you know, demolished, whatever like that. Or if we're gonna stay at that site and keep the fuel station active, then we need to rebuild the tank,
So I'm sure when
Redo
they
the
put
tanks.
it in, of course, it's been a lot of years. The question I have, I didn't even realize there was a state contract for fuel cards.
Mhm.
So the question is, have we ever done the analysis? Because I know, because our tank is not
Fuel-
very big.
Fuel cards versus the
The cost of our fuel as far as savings, because The only reason I ask, our fuel tank isn't big enough, so we always have to do that treatment when it gets colder, and so we have a little added expense. It's not huge, but some of those things. So have we ever, like, are we more cost effective with the savings in fuel or at the rate we're buying it? Have we ever looked at that?
We looked at that specifically, Gina, or Dawn?
Yeah,
I know we pay more via the
because
fuel card.
regardless of where we move, if we don't have to do fuel tanks, and because it's cost effective,
The-
we
the
ought to look at
one,
it.
One aspect we have with, actually with the Provo site, we are, I think, the only fuel island in the county that can function without power. We run on a generator backup. So during the Olympics, that was actually one thing that was looked at, that we were one of the only places that if something happened with power grid and it went down, the fuel card doesn't get you any fuel. But we can operate on full generator power, and
Of course, forget the environmental problems that you're leaking into the ground and stuff, because it's also the only one that's outdated.
well, and that's why we just did the updated cathodic protection. So far, we have not shown any leaks. All of our tests have come back good. The only thing that had a blip on it here in the last little bit was the cathodic protection, which that tells me it's doing its job.
Right.
That over 30 years, that the cathodes have
Sure.
I guess the anodes, which is, it actually went, the anodes are in the ground, that, they've deteriorated to the point we had to rebuild them, so that they continue to protect the tanks. That's what the
That's what
intent
it's
is of
for,
it, so.
yeah.
Um,
Again, I'm just curious. I mean, fuel isn't somebody's specific job we're tied to, so that's something we ought to always look at and say, okay, what's cheaper?
Yeah,
You know,
and-
are we
and-
buying it at such a discounted rate that it makes sense, or?
do you remember what our last purchase was at, dollar-wise per gallon?
Yes,
So,
that's true, but again, state pricing, I don't know what the state pricing is on contract.
The state pricing, we pay whatever it is at whatever.
No, there's a bulk discount tied to it.
you know, on the, for what we
Now, I
buy,
don't know that it's 70 cents.
what we buy in bulk or what we buy in the fuel card?
No, what we would buy if we switched to fuel cards, state fuel cards, versus what we pay in fuel. You're right, it seems like we've been buying if I were to average the fuel this year, when I looked at it, it seems like we're about $1.50, $1.60 a gallon is about our average cost.
Probably about right.
Yeah,
The last one was $1.76,
Yeah.
a little more than
Okay.
$1.76.
so,
And costs have
right,
gone up the last month with the hurricanes and everything, so.
right, now they're finally come back down, but
Yeah, they fluctuate.
sure.
They're volatile for various reasons, and
So again,
sometimes
the
for
other
no
reason I
reason.
ask is because I'm also the same person that said, if we're going to continue to buy fuel, I think we should look at a bigger tank, because the bigger tank, we don't have to add the additives for the colder because of the insulation that comes with it and that stuff, and the bigger discount that comes with buying more fuel at the same time. So that's why I say if we do that analysis, it makes it easier to say, okay, let's buy a 50,000 gallon tank. We're only now buying it quarterly versus, monthly on a 10,000 gallon tank. So.
Sure.
Can I, just for comparison, the bill that I can look at for the gas card, it was about $5,700 for 2,600 gallons, so you're closer to $2.13 a gallon.
and how much were we on the other?
$1.76.
But whose gas cards are that? Is that the state cards? State
State of
discount.
Utah gas card.
Okay, there you go.
Well, there's at least a rough idea of
Yeah.
what the difference would be, so
Is that
I'm
about
assuming that's the
40
same
cents,
time frame.
3 cents?
Right.
That's
Well,
what I'm
they're a
saying.
little, it's,
Close.
I can't see the most current gas card, so it's the month before, and then the 176 is just probably
Our
within the
last
last
one.
few weeks.
Yeah, so you're somewhere in that 40-cent range
Yeah.
per gallon, so.
Okay.
So
So
that's,
then that goes back to the other question. We could save potentially money, and it never even occurred to me till last year when we got so cold that we had to emergency and do an early check release for the fuel. And so I thought, why aren't we buying a bigger tank that's, so that we don't have to go through that? And it's not a ton of money, but $1,000 here and it adds
well,
up.
and even with the fuel cards, I think the main idea of having the fuel cards, and it goes back to like the sheriff's office having, deputies that are exclusively in the north end.
Right.
And, they're not anywhere near the Provo or the Spanish Fork sites. Doesn't make sense to drive all the way to Provo to get gas.
No.
And so that's why we do it, but
Even
when,
though they all live with their Eagle Mountain stickers and Brian's
and,
neighborhoods.
and when you look at some of the gas card purchases are in Spanish Fork, Springville, and Provo.
That's the problem.
And you go, okay, we can save 40 cents a gallon if you drive to one of
And-
these sites that are open 24 hours a day.
And that's my question, is if they're really checking in at headquarters every day, and see, and therein lies part of the problem. So
But that's a different issue than,
Right,
than what
right.
this is, but.
that's not your problem.
Yep, so, the other big one in fleet is our fuel costs. You know, it's always, we gamble on what that's gonna be. What we've asked for in this budget is to put, 250,000 in restricted, for fuel, that if we get down the road in the year and see where it's at, that would be looked at a later date. That should be what our additional ask was in there.
Where, what line item is that?
Well,
Is that
that's-
on, oh,
that's the other-
gasoline?
It's on our,
The other, an additional.
So this year you've used 417,000, but you only budgeted 250, is it?
honestly, that was to make everything balance.
Okay.
I won't lie to you.
So you used 475 and 16. Wow. So where'd you put the extra money? It doesn't. Okay. That would seem reasonable to me. There's no reason actually to restrict all of it, because it's gonna get used.
Oh, and
good
and
chunk.
what it does, it makes it so that you guys have some ability there to look at that with us as we get there. Any other questions on fleet, motor pool?
I don't have any.
Deneen, I guess my question is in 18, what happened in this motor pool budget that I'm not, so normally the 2016 actual has an increase, but they have a $350,000 decrease from the 16 actual.
So this budget's just based upon the revenue that's sent out to the department,
Yeah.
so that's just what the motor pool lease totaled.
Gave.
That, right,
Okay.
exactly. My only question would be, is the extra money for fuel that may or may not be needed enough? Because it seems like it may be a little bit low even with that extra
Yeah.
$200,000.
Because you're already at 474 this year.
It's, again, it's take your dart out and try to figure out what gas prices are gonna do. I don't know.
Right, and I think that we're all in the same boat, but what I don't wanna have happen is you get to 200,000 and then we still need another
Hundred.
And we're in July.
150,000 yeah, to make it through the
Yeah,
year,
so,
so.
you know, and so that may be a good thing, maybe take that in restricted to, see if we're at 300 or 350.
But see, that goes back to my other reasoning, why if we buy a bigger tank, we're not in as big a need. We can wait out a
we can-
hurricane 3 week.
Right,
and save.
we can look at gas prices and.
Yes.
Now, we kinda gamble a little bit on that because
Sure.
if we say, okay, we're gonna wait 3 weeks and get past this bump and then it goes up again, okay, we gambled wrong.
No, but again,
we have the
when we
ability
know a
to
natural
select that.
disaster like that, where we know we're gonna have a spike,
We can,
you know.
we can fuel up soon and,
But the other thing is you can also beat the hurricanes. For example, they sit off coast for a week and they tell you, and you know that's coming. We can also purchase.
we know we wanna jump in and
Right.
purchase and get it filled up and,
Yeah.
I agree. So, okay. All right, let's jump into buildings and grounds. Right there at the top for you, Greg. Career ladder. That's just for you.
Make it easy.
Yeah, I don't think that one's a big one on that one. I think it's just for one individual landscape specialist, so. And then what we
That's a
have.
lot more than I ever got paid to mow a lawn. Oh wait, just kidding.
Then the remaining stuff on that additional list, there's actually several pages in there of additional requests for buildings. What we did is we gave you a kind of summary sheet, that's the 1.25 million, that has it by building. And then as you go through the subsequent sheets, it's, this building is, here's the detail for the courthouse, here's the building, the detail for the security center. And the reason we did that, we're still within our revenue figures. The direction that we were given by the auditor's office when we prepared this was submit basically your operation and maintenance costs, and then do each building by an additional request form. Does that make sense?
So it's not really an additional 1.2. That 1.2 is a breakout of what the internal service fund is.
Right, so the reason that was done, the funding is there for it, like Richard was mentioning it. But what's happened sometimes is the projects have gotten buried in the budget because they're already in there.
Right.
And so this is a chance to be able to review those
Right.
additional projects.
So
one
four
by
hundred
one.
ninety-three thousand admin. I want to know what we're doing for $500,000 at the admin building.
Lights in the commission office.
Nice.
Yeah, so if you turn behind
Yeah,
it, like
flip
each
back
of
a few
the,
pages and it's in there and
each, that's the summary page, and then there's a
there should
detail for
be
each.
other additional budget sheets that are by building.
Well, I don't think we have it in the same.
Yeah, I don't think I have exactly what you guys think I have either.
I think it's in the same order that it's on the summary sheet.
What's it look like? Yeah, no, I have that. That's what I'm saying.
You have the summary sheet. Is this the one that says administration building?
So I don't have.
This
Yeah.
438,
Oh.
It's the-
493 right here is the 493 that's on this one, but here's all the detail of it. Okay? So each of these that are on the summary sheet
Okay.
have.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that makes sense. So what you're saying is, you and I have talked about,
This is the summary sheet.
redoing
And
these
this is the
windows.
detail for this building.
and so this Windows.
There's a sheet that has that on it.
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
there-
now-
There's a different sheet for each one of these buildings.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, so
We're talking about that one right there.
okay, so that's perfect. So on this $100,000, for example, window glazing and replacement, you and I have talked about doing more windows that are better, but also coming into some of this and putting in half a wall. Is that included in that?
Well, not building wide, because this won't cover this whole
Right.
thing, but it would be part of that project, yes.
Okay, so then that's my next question.
But, so like, I'll take this.
So
window
for
bank right
this
here,
one,
if we
we're
can
only
see-
doing the south side. For this 100,000, we're only doing the south side of the admin
I-
building.
You know what Brady had specific in there, or either one of you?
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because
I know the intent was.
are we doing the
was-
south side or the side the attorney shot out? Or are we doing?
The intent was to do the south side, because that's where we have the bigger issues.
Right.
And
I don't know
why?
if it's all-
What's the reasoning to do that?
The glazing on these south windows, it pops out a lot for some reason. I think partly because the windows are so old, and to try to get more efficient windows out
Yeah,
here on this
we're
south
wasting
face with the solar energy.
Cost analysis has been done on this?
There actually was a subcontractor that came in because I actually knew him and I talked to him.
That was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just said south.
So.
So it's the south side of the building.
So all these that have, they have cost analysis with them, where we.
I don't know that every item has that, but the bigger ones we've tried to look at to see, what's the best on them, so.
I mean, I love
Carpet?
efficiencies, I love that we go down that path, but I'd like to see the cost analysis of why, because there are times in which your return on that thing doesn't, sometimes they don't even match up.
Yeah.
By the time you have to turn right around and replace it or do something.
And I don't think he's done that on all of them, but I know they have on some of the bigger ones, so.
Okay. What's
Buildings on the exterior glazing on this building, I can see on this right now some specs for RFP to do energy cost analysis on.
okay? And I'm only picking apart this admin building. We just redid the carpet. So what's the $70,000 carpet? What's remaining?
We have, that's not been done in the whole building.
I know. What's the remaining portion that's being done for that?
Well, this room's one of them. I couldn't tell you off the top of
Okay.
my head, so.
So I would want kind of some of that. An elevator remodel.
The cars on the two elevators are the original.
Okay.
They're there from when the building was built back in the 80s. It's to the point that they need to actually go in and redo the car because of problems we're having, seen when the elevators are
Yes.
down. It's to actually go in and retrofit those so that you have
Okay.
a new car in the elevator.
So I guess the question I have is, generally it's more cost effective to do an entire project all at once, but will one elevator function while you do another one so that the building still has the functionality? Because there's a
Yes.
lot of,
We have
I was gonna say, we have too many people that need to go up the clerk auditor's office. That
we
88
can't take them both out at the same time.
I just wanted to make sure. Painting, got that. Water coolers, chairs for the 1,400. We're sitting in them.
These.
Yeah, $45,000 for those chairs. We didn't spend that much to retrofit and make this much nicer. So I'd like to be brought up to speed on kind of what the chairs and what's the
We'd have to
redesign
have-
because
I know he had got an estimate from them on
so
doing
for
this,
example, This is called theater seating or stadium seating. I know, cause I tried to do my own, I was gonna do that in my own theater room in my own personal home before I did another way. And these are not, I mean, you can do them at $300 a pop. So that's what I'm saying. I'm like, 45, as I'm doing the math, I'm trying to get there really quickly. That's a lot of chairs. So I'd like to see an evaluation
Yeah, we
redone to, we can still do these kind of chairs that are, you know, built to last and, you know, things like
I know
that.
Brady had got a cost estimate on that.
Yeah, but a cost estimate, I'm telling you, that
Yeah,
one
that's-
sticks out.
that's
So,
Budget purposes, so
We haven't put it out with you.
it's for budget purposes. We can try to get an idea of what it's gonna cost and,
okay, so these, okay, that helps me. So these are all just estimates
oh,
on,
absolutely.
okay,
That's all we're doing at this point is trying to give you a budget estimate. So,
okay. Okay, I'm with you there. Security
And-
center, the 316,000, tell me that's not the roof again.
the roof's being done,
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, cause it seems like that roof popped up for a couple years. Cameras monitored it, we just redid all the cameras on an emergency last year, and we have to replace them again. We did an upgrade. Because we did it through you guys, and the problem was we kept deciding whether it was you guys or IT, and then we had that whole budget carryover from this year. It's line 17, $50,000, cameras and monitors.
have to ask them what it is. And again, none of this stuff's gone to bid. It's-
And that's not even my point on that one. We literally spent a couple $100,000 redoing cameras
right,
and
the whole-
monitor
the whole
storage
system
system
and- Yep,
6 months ago.
oh, yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
I'd
here.
have to ask him what it is. I don't know the detail on
Okay.
what it gets into, so.
So, the other problem is on this fund, for example, at least the complaint, it's not a problem. The department heads generally don't see it or know a schedule. You guys generally have a rough idea. I've seen, now that I went through it last year, you guys have a binder and it's all broken out. The department heads need to kind of have an idea, because at the jail, you know, they get charged for it, and so make sure the sheriff's seen these things and that, you know, if he questions it, for example, you can
do that.
explain to him why.
How many swamp coolers you talking about for 20,000 for repairs?
You know, swamp coolers.
These
yeah.
commercial? How many?
Well, they have one for the motor pool for $1,500.
You're talking the one at the security center though for the 20,000, correct?
Yeah. The big commercial swamp coolers? That's just for repairs.
Why does Public Works building need a snow blower? We got a lot of manual labor for or shovels, don't we?
Well, nobody's there to use them. They're all at the other buildings.
Okay, well then why do we need a snow blower? If nobody's there to use the shovels, you're not there to use a snow blower.
Question.
A tiller. What in the world do we use a tiller for?
All of the flower beds.
You mean the ones I want to go to Zero Escape so we don't have this ongoing budget? That you told me Commissioner Anderson made you rip out years ago and go,
So, you look out the window right there, that transformer with all those pretty bushes around the grass. We had that all in with rock. And we got told in no uncertain terms that would be landscaped.
yeah, I
So
just
it got landscaped.
I think we ought to reevaluate how much we spend on landscaping versus Zero
That's-
Escaping, and
And I think there's certainly some areas that we can do some cost savings
Yeah.
that way. That's,
well, especially on the south side, if you really go, again, assuming that we do this on the south side, we go to energy efficiency. I mean, I've been in the treasurer's office. You can't touch these
Oh, they're
round
hot.
pounds. They about die, and the heat that comes in off of that. So,
Shawcroft's office,
So-
same way.
well, that's okay. They deserve it, but they're attorneys. But again, if some of the landscaping is put in there to help do that. So those bushes and stuff you do have really helped. But yeah, again, if we go to that, do we really need it? That's my question.
Sure. Well, and there used to be up here along the treasurer's office, there was a row of trees along there that was in place for, it was the big columnar type
Yeah.
trees. And it's probably been 5 years ago those came out.
Yeah.
With the reflective heat off the building.
Burned them all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it destroyed them. And so that's when we took them out and put in what's,
Right.
what you see now with the annual change
Right.
of things, so. Okay, any other specific questions on buildings?
Now, make sure that you get those to department heads, please. And if you know rough dates,
What we can do is
pending approval.
we could take this list and kind of give them an idea on, you know, maybe even by quarter or something like that.
Yeah, good enough.
Capital projects, just, we've talked about several of these already. These are the ones that are in our capital projects, request. The Provo Fuel Station, that's one that, depending on what we do with moving facilities or staying there, we're gonna have some expense no matter what we do, because even if we sell the property, based on past experience with, underground fuel tanks, and you sell the property with the underground fuel tanks in there, the liability doesn't transfer with it.
Oh, sure.
So if we sell the property, we still need to decommission the tanks and pull them out of the ground or whatever. I think we actually want to pull them out, 'cause if we leave them in ground, then now you have a
We need to
landfill.
pull them out and properly destroy them.
Right, because you can inert them in place, but then you fall into the category that you're now a landfill.
Well, again.
We don't want to do that, so.
No, and not only that, if we really sell it, the person is gonna execute.
Right, but that's something that we're gonna have some expense on that fuel station no matter what we do. You know, whether we stay there or whether we go, so. The telephone system upgrade we've talked about, the radio replacements, fiber optics, Thistle debris basin, that's one that,
Skipped a whole bunch.
oh, I was just looking at my list up on the board here. Which list are you
Okay.
looking at?
Well, so Pleasant Grove Canyon Road, you put 9.5 million, but see, that's
Oh, yes.
why I laughed or look at this, because some of these, see, all of a sudden, that 33 is not really 33, because you already have that funded out of MAG funds.
Right.
$2 million out of Elk Ridge Drive construction and right of way, that's already funded too.
Yeah, and that's, and see if you, and you
So-
don't, and you don't have it on your sheet, but like mine with the colors on it,
Yeah.
I've already got those broken out.
Okay, so in other words, there's not really an ask in that 2218. You're showing how the breakdown is for the funds that are currently there.
Right,
Okay.
yep. Yep, so if you look on road specifically, you look down at the bottom of that column on 2218, you've got the part 16, part 18 total. That's $13.5 million of that $16 million total.
So the gray out, as I'm reading it,
Are the asks.
are the asks.
Provo
Yeah.
Fuel Station,
Yes.
$500,000.
Okay,
Flood control, stormwater, SCADA system, 100,000.
Yep. So,
And a whole bunch of TRCC ones.
yeah, and that's
Um,
in there as well, so the, where did I put the?
so there's the 2.5 million on the TRCC, the fuel station is 500,000, you get 100,000 with flood control, stormwater stuff, and then you've got radio replacement, fiber conduit fiber, SCADA system, telephone system upgrade, and the Asset Works tracking software.
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
wait, I missed one,
courthouse restoration.
courthouse restoration.
So let's talk about that one real quick. Going back to the same thing with our roads discussion we had earlier. This one I'd like to pull all those off and have you guys, whether it's you guys, I have no idea on buildings, okay?
On all of the capital stuff? or-
No,
or-
on the historic courthouse
Okay.
specifically. We all know it's an icon for Utah County. Problem is you've told me numbers that are scary, somewhere between 40 and 60 million maybe, to
Yeah, we really don't.
because
know.
we don't know. But the thing is to me, again, these 600,000 they're all cosmetic for the most part. I think we need to have that discussion as far as if you guys can evaluate that building, figure out what it would cost or have it potentially even go out to bid, see what it is. Because again, there's a difference between using that 600,000 as a bond payment to fix that building so that it will withstand and be structurally sound. And just, again, buying different color lipsticks.
Did we, I thought we had something like that we had done, or was in process of.
We've looked at the exterior stone, excuse me, and have an exterior stone master plan, and did some preliminary evaluation on the seismic nature of the entire building. And years ago went through that analysis, I guess, of
Okay.
what the priority should be. And for the money that was available, or the money that the commission wanted to commit at the time, it was decided to work on the exterior stone because we could do, granted, most of it's cosmetic. If there's a big earthquake, it's
It's a waste of money.
a waste of money. But for other events.
Not even a big earthquake,
Yeah, not even bigger.
based on what you learned under the stairs.
Yes. But for other types of events, it is important. I mean, there are aspects of that exterior stone, all the exterior stone work we've done that
Oh,
are life
agreed,
safety
it's an
issues.
important component, but I'm just saying, we need to start looking, to me, at the building as a whole, instead of
Absolutely.
making this shell look pretty.
Absolutely. And so we've done some preliminary analysis on what that would take. And the decision was to work on the exterior. We've got a reevaluation and a estimation of the exterior portion of that, what it would take to finish that. So yeah, the next step is a full evaluation of.
Okay, how long
those
would that
remaining
take, just roughly? Guessing, to have just the evaluation so we could,
It'd be a few months.
10 months.
okay, can we start that? Find out what that would cost, and let's talk about that in the budget, so that we can do that, because again,
And I'm assuming that could be, you know, we haven't earmarked this 600,000 for, in the 2018 for any project specific at this point, so.
right, and
that
that,
could
but
be-
that's what I'm saying, it's a lot easier to go to the to the tab, recommend to the commission, right? And there's this ongoing $500,000 because of the asset to the community it is, and it also does generate some revenue and stuff, and potentially use some funds out of that to make a bond payment again, because $40 million, whatever, I don't know. But until we know what the cost is, we can't even really, we're all speaking in hypothetical. Oh, okay.
Anyway, that's kind of where that is, so, just a couple of these others that we really haven't talked about too much yet. The Thistle Debris Basin, that's one that, it's a large basin up at the old town of Thistle, where the gun range is. Does flood control along the Spanish Fork River. The basin was last cleaned about 15 or so years ago. It's in need of being cleaned again with the debris that's come down from, you know, fires and.
On the west side of the fence, on the road, basically?
Yeah, as you pull into the gun range, it's off to your left. And then there's an outlet that goes through the tunnel
Yeah.
that lets the river go out. The estimated cost on that's around $1 million. We had actually gone after some FEMA disaster mitigation money 2 years ago, and we're not successful in getting it. They said, thanks, but sorry. And so that is one that we do need to do. That's something that, because of the size of it and the complexity there, it's something that's not really within our capabilities to do in-house. There's just a sheer volume of material that would have to get moved. The site's probably 9 acres,
Oh, at least.
so what's within the basin. And we're estimating we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 8 feet deep. So it's a substantial amount of material that needs to come out of there in order to have that basin function like it should. So that is one ask we've got in there. We've talked about the Asset Works software, the Public Works facility, we've put it in there. It's, you know, still depending on what we do with the building needs analysis that's winding down, but felt like we needed to have that in there for discussion purposes for next year. The Pioneer Crossing land, that may be coming sooner rather than later, so, I don't know if you guys have had a recent
Yep.
discussion, so.
Yeah.
And then the South County Health Building, the Wasatch Mental Health, that's the building that's currently under construction in Payson, anticipated to be completed the early part of next year. We weren't exactly sure what our timeframe would be on the funding that was already allocated for that, so we.
They wouldn't be moving in till next October,
Okay, so
so
I think.
at the soonest, I think is
we-
kind of the
was
last
it $1
update
million,
we
is
got.
that what we put in for?
And I'm only referring to the health department.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
that's all this would be, is just the county's portion of it, not the
Yeah.
Wasatch Mental Health part of it, so.
That was the last update we got, was tentatively October.
So we'd anticipated that some of that money would need to be spent in 18, so therefore that's why it's still there, so. Any other, on the capital projects list, any other questions that you have there? I'll just run through a quick summary then, and then we'll be done. Combined public works budgets for 2018, we're asking for a little over $2.5 million from general fund. Most of that's in roads, 24,000 in administration for the items we've talked about. For engineering, we're asking for that Service Area 8 money to help fund half of a stormwater person, and we'll make the adjustments that you've asked for on that as well. So you'll see that. Community development, we had about $97,000 that would be coming from Service Area 8. Fire marshal, 44,500, almost 600, out of service area 7. On the TRCC funds, we'd be looking at an additional 390 for parks O&M. That's the pavement maintenance for the parkways and parking lots. And then the parks projects and historic courthouse is what we've talked about for TRCC. So
What did they give you from, last year for, cause I closed my budget sheet, from TRCC, they approved for county parks, what did they give you?
for our operations budget,
Yeah,
whatever our operations budget was, so.
yeah, it seems like it was like 1.4, 1.5 million. So when you say an additional, you're trying to up that to 1.8.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So,
They'll wanna know why. They'll ask you why, so. we can
1.8, or is it 1.6?
what was the 1.25 plus the 390, so you'd be at,
Okay, so it's not a huge increase.
that'd
from-
be 1.64. And then just the discussion on the new facility that is, we're kind of going down a dual path here because we don't know which direction we're going for sure, so we're planning as though we're doing it, but no, that decision has not been made yet, so. And then with that, any other questions you have for us? I'm only 24 minutes past.
Nope, thank you.
Well, we did take a break.
Yeah,
And
we,
you were late.
I wasn't late. I was in the building at check my key card.
Okay.
no, thank you, and we'll take it from here, and of course, keep going through the process.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Are you back on Monday, Commissioner Ivy?
Yeah,